Welcome, everyone. Good day. We are today on the Global Meditation, part 2, and that's day 2 also. I see everybody's joining. That's great from Instagram and on Facebook. It's also coming. So welcome back. We are doing our daily meeting to find a spot in our time when we are in confinement and even later on where we can use these techniques, simple techniques that help integrate mind and body. These techniques come from ancient tradition, from the yoga tradition, from the Vedic tradition, that has been given to us in this modern time by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and that are very practical and have a very strong also scientific understanding, which means they can be understood by science. We can have an idea of why they work and what do they do. So what we are trying in these few sessions is to have the techniques and sometimes add some explanation so that the intellect is satisfied with what we are doing. We have done already the breathing exercises in the first part from day 1 to day 14. And if you like your friends to join, if you feel it is helpful and you want others to benefit from it, they are absolutely, of course, welcome, because these sessions will remain posted for the time being on Facebook and also on Instagram, so you can let your friends know to access them. Those who are joining live today, again, welcome. It's wonderful. I can see many from many parts of the world on Facebook and on Instagram. Welcome again. And I hope you have had the chance to practice what we have done on day 1, which is very simple, and that is taking the pulse. So I will start always these first few days of part 2 a little bit on the slow side, just in case people join us in the middle, so they are not confused and they don't know what they're doing. But I encourage you, of course, to tag your friends and send comments to them and tell them to join, and they can still join these live sessions. But again, ideally, best is to go in a sequence, because in a sequence, the mind, the intellect, the experience is more real, and the refinement of the feeling on the level of touch, of the different senses, gets more and more refined as we actually practice these techniques. Now, we're calling this global meditation, and one wonders, we are doing breathing techniques, we are doing some mental attention, we are doing some touch technique of the pulse, feeling the pulse. Is this really meditation? And it is really part of meditation. When the mind puts its attention on anything, then we can say it's a mental process. And the mental process and an intellectual process is part of the global understanding of what meditation can be. So there are all kinds of systems of using the mind, contemplation, concentration, focused attention, open monitoring. They use different names, and therefore there are different techniques. The programs that are more effective and most powerful is to transcend, is to go beyond all the surface levels and go to the self. And transcending is what the transcendental meditation technique is. And as we are coming into the process, since we are in confinement, it was felt that we should give the other techniques so everyone can benefit and use the different approaches, which are also very powerful, to settle the mind and create integration between mind and body. So that was as a general introduction. I can see Prakash is there, Françoise is there, Daida Clemens, good to have you again, always. Lani and everyone else, Gabi, Dorina, Anthony, Irvina. Jamie Benares, wonderful, Tom and Eva, and many that I see are also on the Instagram, as well as coming up on the Facebook. So this is a time to get us all settled and sitting quietly. And I hope you have practiced what we've done yesterday, which is very simple, just feeling the pulse. So what we have done is we have put the hand on the chest, and then let's say the right hand on the chest. And then we take the left hand with these three fingers. So these three fingers, the index finger, the middle finger, and the ring finger of the left hand, and we put them on the radial artery. Where is the radial artery? If you go from the thumb down towards the inside of the palm area and the arm and the forearm, you go down and then you reach on the border of it, on the left border of it here, in this case. You know, if you turn it like this, you can say it's the right border, but it's just on the border under the thumb. You reach a notch, and then there is a bone there, a feeling. You feel a bone, and then you pass that bone, and this is where you want to put your first finger, the index finger. And then comes the second finger, the middle finger, and then third is the ring finger. So when you put it like this, you will have the hand like that, and towards the inside is the position of where we put our hand. And this is connecting us with the rhythms of the heart. And as we have said yesterday, and I repeat for those who are coming again new, it connects us with the vibrations of the heart in a very special way, not just the pulse, which means the pulse in terms of reading how many times the beats are there, but we will be learning also these qualities of the pulse that ultimately help those who are trained, well trained, to diagnose even a lot of problems and diseases and balance and imbalance in the human physiology. So we first start by feeling the pulse. So we put our hand, we don't have to keep the hand on the chest. We can open the hand and then close the eyes. And now our attention goes to the fingers. And we press on the arm with the three fingers. And as soon as we feel the pulse on any one of the fingers, we stop, and now we feel the pulse. So everyone can do that. We're closing the eyes so that we're not distracted with outside things, but you can, of course, open the eyes. It's no problem to check where you are and feel the pulse. So on any one of the fingers, you feel the pulse. And now see if you feel it on the other fingers also. If one of the fingers is dominant, then release a little bit that finger and press a little more with another finger. So if you're feeling, let's say, the dominant one is the index finger, release it a little bit and press a little more on the middle finger, with the middle finger on the radial artery, which is crossing there. And be patient. And then as soon as you feel the pulse, stay with it a little bit and feel it. And now you release it a little and then press with the index finger. and feel if you can get the pulse. So if you don't get the pulse on one of the fingers, it's okay. This will have a meaning. We will be explaining this. This is quite a science, quite a detailed reality of why it's here, why it's there, what quality it has, how strong it is, how weak it is. And we'll be going through these to understand our physiology and how our physiology is functioning. We're connecting with the heart, that is the center that distributes all the nourishment, all the full values of life that we are digesting, that we are taking from the air, the life force. It's distributed with the heart to the whole body. So try to feel again, and then I want to know from you, or we share all together actually, even for those who will join later, they will see which finger is you're feeling mostly the pulse against. So let's call the index finger 1, the middle finger number 2, and the ring finger number 3. So we have 1, 2, 3. So number 1 is the index, which is against the bone, and then a little more away from the bone. The notch here away will be the middle finger, and then will be the ring finger. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I want to know, just write if you can, after you feel for a second, which one is the most. So some are feeling 2, I can see on Instagram. Let's see on Facebook. Just write to me 1, 2, or 3. Many are having 2. Middle finger, very good. Anna. Ziad Salam has 1. Yes. And Facebook, let me see. Let me know which finger is very good. 2. Many are having 2 and 1. Okay. Some have all 3. That's very good. All right. So now that we have this experience, we're going to keep doing it at home. But I want to explain a little bit some fundamentals, why we have 3 fingers and what it will be related to. Because if we don't understand it, we're not going to connect with it. That's why it's part of our technique that we are using to connect with ourselves, actually. So this technique is one way to connect with part of ourselves. Of course, our heart is a big part of ourselves. It distributes all the nourishment to the whole body, and it reflects what's happening in the mind. When you're afraid, when you're worried, then your heart beats in a different way. And when your physiology is also requiring different things or has different needs, it also will make the heart and the flow of the blood and the way the arteries contract go in different ways. So there are 3 things actually we are looking at basically and globally, and that is from Ayurveda. Ayurveda means the knowledge of Ayu, which knowledge of life, knowledge of how life is built. And there are 3 principles that are very important. There is a principle of movement, there is principle of transformation and change and metabolism, and there is principle of structure. Why these are very important? Because they are actually the pillars of life and living and structure and function of the human physiology and the mind. See, there is something which is very important. If you don't have a structure, then you don't have anything. So you need a structure, a solidity, a structure. But if the structure is too rigid, for example, you take a statue is very perfect, very nice, very clean, doesn't change, it's rigid, but it's not alive. It doesn't have anything. It doesn't evolve. It stays the same. And so therefore, for evolution, there has to be change. And for change, there have to be movement. One has to move from one state to the other, from one state to the other. So for life to be strong and happy and create fulfillment, there has to be some basis, because without structure, there is nothing. But this structure cannot be so rigid as like a stone or a statue and made out of stone, or a metallic thing which has no real functioning, it doesn't move. And for that, there is a need for evolution to have change and to have movement. So to evolve means to go from one stage to another stage to another stage. This is the power of change, of evolution. So we should not be afraid of change. We should not be afraid of leaving what is there, that was there before, and going into some new thing, because that is the process of life. That's why we are living. We want actually to transform ourselves into more and more, have bigger and bigger experience. The purpose of life is expansion of happiness, expansion of understanding, expansion of knowledge, expansion of bliss consciousness. And for that, we have to keep evolving and growing. And therefore, change is needed. But if change is too much, then there is no stability, no strength. And ultimately, if it's changing completely, then it's a field of transformation which is so fast that one cannot experience the moment, cannot experience the present. So there is a balance between the stability, the strength, the solidity of our reality, who we are, and then the change that is happening. And between these two is the process that makes the change happen. So there is the solidity of the structure, there is the change, and there is the process that allows the change to take place, which is the transformation value. So we have three values. We have structure, solidity, stability. We have transformation, so that there is a process that changes. And there is the actual movement that allows the situation go from one structure to another, from one situation to another. There is a movement that takes place. Something moves. And in our physiology, it's also like this. There is movement everywhere. So this movement moves the blood, moves the air, moves the mind from one thought to another. And there is something, a mechanism, that actually makes us go from one thought to another, or from one physiological state to another. For example, when we take food, we are taking some gross elements, we are digesting them, burning them, making them small particles. The body takes them in and rebuilds them into a new structure, new cells, new aspects of our physiology. So that is the transforming value. And then there is the structure that they are creating or that are created. And these structures and their solidity is the other aspect which gives the stability and the strength. So how much our body overall is involved in movement, how much it is involved in digestion and transformation, and how much is it involved in having stability and strength and structure. These three values actually have to be there. And in Ayurveda, and the science of Veda, of life, they have a name. So there is a name for the movement, and that is Vata. There is a name for the transformation value, the digestion value, and that is called Pitta. And there is a name for the structure value, the the stability, the strength value, and that is called kapha. So we have vata, pitta, kapha. You can remember these names if you like. They come from Sanskrit. These are Sanskrit names, but you don't have to know them as such. You will use them as we go along, as you will learn more. But we have 1, 2, 3, and that gives us an idea what these fingers will ultimately represent. There will be a finger for vata, a finger for kapha, and a finger for pitta. So a finger for vata, number 1, a finger for pitta, which is transformation, that's number 2, and a finger for structure and kapha, and that is number 3. So index, middle, and the ring finger represent vata, pitta, kapha, or in other words, movement and transformation. And in the second one, the middle one, there is the metabolism, the change also, but in terms of its metabolic value, its transformation value, and then the structural value, the solidity of the structure. So movement, change, transformation, and structure. Okay. Now, everyone has to have all the 3, of course, because as we said, without one, then there is not a quality of the other. Now, one can say everything changes all the time, even a statue, but then in a statue that is made out of stone, you can say that it's mostly the kapha value, the structure, the solidity that is important. And of course, there are heat and temperature and the molecules inside and the atoms, they move. And even though the statue appears to be staying there for a long time, it does change, and there is movement in it, at least on the molecular and atomic level. So, but there for the statue, it's mostly the structure that is important and less of the others. For us human beings, the 3 are very important. All the 3 are very important. And the 3 are balanced differently in different individuals. And that leads to different characters, different characteristics, different moments in life, etc. The same as in nature. Nature has different times where there is more movement and less movement. There is times of structure and solidity. The seasons have that, the days have that. And we will go through this as we start analyzing the pulse, because the pulse is influenced by all of these things. If somebody has too much movement, then they are not settled, and anxiety, the mind is busy, then, that's also something that we will learn how to appreciate through the pulse. If somebody is too heavy, not moving, gaining a lot of weight, then there is too much of the kapha value, of the structure value, and less of the other values. If somebody is very hot-tempered and digestion is very strong, or they have tendency to develop burning sensations and their skin, and like this, they're red, they're hot-tempered, that means there is too much of a pitta situation. So all of these will be able to detect in the pulse, but be patient. It takes time to refine the feeling, So some of us I have seen have felt more pulse on the second, some more on the first. Very few, for example, have felt on the third, which is, of course, an interesting aspect, because the third value is far away from the bone, and therefore when you put your hand on it and the finger, that pulse, you should really be able to release a little bit the 2 other fingers, so that number 3 has a chance to be experienced. Okay, so what we will do now at home, when you are practicing, you will do that practice. And remember, this is not just for the sake of theoretically understanding what is going on, but we are building up something that helps us to create mind and body balance, to be back in touch with ourselves, and to attune ourselves by knowing what is happening. So the attention, when the attention of our mind goes to the pulse and understands the pulse from this perspective, it is going to be healing itself. So even just the attention will start the healing process. It's a more advanced aspect in a way, because it requires a little bit of understanding and a little bit of practice, because we are not used to take the pulse, but we're used to touch, and the touch is there, and many have felt it is easy and possible. So continue to do it at home. And what you will do at home is put your hand on, as we have seen, with the 3 fingers, and then close the eyes and feel first where is the pulse. If you don't feel any pulse on any finger, press a little more or a little less, because if you press too much and you are tense, then you might close the passage of the blood completely, and there you might not feel the pulse at all. Or if you're pressing too light, then you also will not feel. So just now try to see how far you can press with your fingers on your arm, on the radial artery, and how much you are able to detect of the pulse. That's all. And then the pulse, after you detect it on any one of the fingers, you try to release that finger a little bit and play with the other fingers to see which one is now going to be felt. So by doing this, you acquire more sensitivity, and you are more and more in touch with what is happening in your physiology, and particularly in the heart. And also overall, you will be learning what is going on with all these aspects of movement, change, transformation, structure, metabolism, and all the different values that build up our physiology. Very good. So do this as many times as possible. What is nice is to do it, you can do it when you wake up in the morning. After you wake up, you check the pulse. Before you go to bed, you can check up your pulse. In the middle of the day, you can do it twice, before lunch, before dinner, like that. So 3, 4, 5 times a day. When you have a chance, check your pulse. And you can also do it if you suddenly feel upset with something or angry. Check your pulse, see how it's going. If you feel lazy, sleepy, you can check the pulse. After you have some food, if you're feeling good, or if you're feeling indigestion, you can check the pulse. And that develops already in the brain and the mind the sensitivity for what is going on in my heart, in my physiology, in my overall structure and function of my body on a very subtle level. You don't know yet how to diagnose and what means what, but you will be culturing yourself to be in touch with yourself, with your physiology, with what you're doing. And that will culture also the touch, the feeling of the touch, which then will become more and more refined, and ultimately you will be able to feel these fine aspects of the pulse. And then if you are interested and you continue, you'll be able actually ultimately to diagnose the different things that are happening in the physiology, even diseases, on yourself or on others through the pulse. So it's a powerful technique which is stimulating intellectually if you are interested, but which is also having a calming effect by going back to the self and connecting back to that aspect of ourself, which is our physiology and the way it is functioning. Of course, our self is infinite and bounded, and that is pure consciousness, and that is why we transcend and go to that value. And that's what we will do now. We will close the eyes, take a few minutes, and then practice. For those who practice transcendental meditation, go ahead. Others, do the techniques that we have learned from the first part, which is the pranayama. And the feeling, you start with the movement with one hand on the chest, one hand on the abdomen, as we have learned in first part. Then make sure your face is relaxed, your shoulders are relaxed, your hands are soft, and then do your pranayama one side and the other side. Exhalation, inhalation, you close, exhalation, inhalation. And after you do it and you feel comfortable, you start putting your attention on, as we have seen, on sound, touch, heat, taste, and smell, ultimately on a fine level. So let's do that now, and you can keep doing that, of course, during the day. You can feel your pulse, and then you can do this if you feel your pulse during a moment where you have any anxiety or any pain or pressure or something. Feel your pulse, and then do your pranayama, and then feel your pulse again, and you probably will feel some difference. So let's now close the eyes and don't mind anything, and do your time of inward direction or your pranayama meditation.